Hello and welcome to Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem and it is magical mystery bead box time. Let's work with the September 2024 box, which is the Wizard of Oz. Let's have a quick look at what comes in your box and then we'll make something together. Which of the West gives us olives, blacks and beautiful purples and titanium colourways? Which of the North gives us pinks and aqua tones along with that gorgeous gold? I have got two chains, red ruby slippers and green Oz. Beautiful chains, both of them. I have the Cowardly Lion, Emerald City, Tin Man, Scarecrow, Dorothy and the Tornado, fantastic little mix there, and Poppy Fields. Love these two-way beads. We're going to follow the yellow brick road to see the Wizard of Oz by using the chain called Oz and the Tin Man strand. Now I've already cut my Tin Man strand. This is what's left over. This is what we're going to be using, and here is what we'll be making. So the Tin Man just wanted a heart. Let's give him two. When it comes to preparing your Oz chain, you'll find a bar connected to a double loop Oz emerald connector. And then there is a small loop connecting this to the next link in the chain. If you cut this little loop and discard it, you'll end up with one single drop, and that's all we're going to be needing. To create the upper part of our Tin Man earrings, we're going to use a 4-inch length of 20 gauge round wire. Mine is a medium craft wire. So I'm just going to begin by warming that wire through to ensure that it's nice and fluid. And then I'm going to turn a right angle bend around about 1 inch from one end. You could use your round nose pliers or your bail makers, but I'm going to be using my memory wire finishing pliers to create a small wrapped loop at one end. So just wind that around and get the loop to sit in the centre at the top of that strand of wire. We're just going to bring the tail of wire around a couple of times. If you make your earrings side by side, so just the first bit, then the second bit, you'll be able to ensure that they look as close to identical as possible. Hold on to that loop and rotate the tail of wire around that core a good couple of times. When you're making earrings, it does pay to use the same amount of wire for each piece. And then count how many turns you have done. So we've got 2.5 visible turns here. I'm just going to trim that end away and pop that out of harm's way. Get that nice and tidy. And then we're going to add on some beads to this. So up at the top, I decided to add one of these spacers. Very, very beautiful little antiqued silver colourway, which I think matches beautifully with my wire choice of copper, but you could go for gold to match in with your Oz chain if you prefer. So I've added my spacer, then I'm going to add one of the gorgeous red faceted rondelles from the Tin Man strand and the smaller of the two designs of metal hearts. Both gorgeous, you could use either to be fair. I quite liked how the little one looked. So I'm just going to sit that so that it's nice and snuggled up. And then what we're going to do is to hold across that core wire and create a sideways facing loop. So that's the same orientation as the loop at the top, because my earring wires come forwards and away from the desk and we want to link into them. So I'm now going to create a second wrapped loop at the bottom of those beads. So create your round form first, bring the tail of wire all the way around. It's a little bit easier to get that slightly mangled when you're working with this lighter wire. We normally work with an 18 gauge. So make sure that sits as neatly as possible before grabbing hold of your chain and station from the Oz chain. So slide that tail of wire through the loop at the top of the chain and get that to sit down in position. You may need to just open that loop out slightly. Pull that all the way down to the bottom, close the loop up, and then we are going to complete that as a wrapped loop again. So grip a hold of the small loop shape without squishing the bar connector that forms part of the Oz chain. And then just twist that until you have filled up the gap. What we're looking to do here is to recreate the same number of twists on this earring as we do on the second earring. So I'm just going to flip this over now, trim away that excess. We've got about 3/4 of an inch remaining. So if you have a bit of a scrap of wire, you might find that it's enough for your project. Once you've got the beads in position, it's a little bit easier to just tidy up those wraps, make sure that they're neat and tidy. So that's the upper of the section of our Tin Man earrings. And if you don't want an overly dramatic long drop, you could absolutely stop there. For the second part of our Tin Man earrings, we're going to warm through about a 5-inch length of 18 gauge wire. Making sure that the end is flush cut, we're going to start by creating a nice spiral shape. So rotate that around, almost a complete circle. You can use your round nose pliers. And then once that is almost a full circle, you can grip across that and start pushing it into your non-dominant hand. Using both hands to move if it helps you, or you can find your own groove and just use one, whichever works best for you. So I have used that spiraling technique to move once and twice from the start point. And I'm going to give that a really hearty squish to make it nice and strong. I'm then going to just smooth and warm that wire through and generate a heart. Now when you're making the 2 hearts, I would advise just laying one over the top of the other, like so. And then you can grip from underneath so that you know exactly where that angle change has to happen to get 2 hearts that are exactly the same. If it doesn't quite work for you, you can always just close that up a little bit, or indeed open it out should you need to. So what we're going to do now is just apply some warmth. You could, if you prefer, use your bail makers to get this round form, but I find that you get a really nice rounded form if you warm the wire through and just draw it gently back down to the point at the base of the heart. I'm going to invert that now, grab my nice chain nose pliers, just hold that so that I can bring it slightly tighter into the middle before bringing that wire upwards and away from the base of the heart. So let's just get that to sit into position and see how that looks. You can of course hammer this if you have a block and hammer. You may like to just tighten up this central bend. If I just get that to sit in the light, I'll show you that you can pinch that slightly with the tip of your pliers before getting that to move into the middle and straightening up that central core. Then we're going to add another couple of beads. I've gone for one of these beautiful ruby red faceted hearts to sit down into the cleft of the heart there. And then another one of those antique silver spacers. I'm going to bring a link forwards now, and we're going to go for a simple loop this time. I'm going to cover over the top of that bead with my thumbnail and just push the wire forwards, demonstrating the benefit of warming that wire through. Means it's nice and fluid and ready to work. And then I'm going to create a relatively small loop again up at the top. Bring that wire all the way over so that it crosses over that angle change. And then we're going to trim that wire away. We will need to just centralise that. So make that nice and strong and sit it up centrally to your design. So all that remains is to link the 2 pieces together. You can do any combination of these. If you want a slightly shorter drop, you can forego using the bar in that beautiful Oz chain and just have one of those emerald colour connectors. So let's open up that loop we just made and add that onto the base of that double looped emerald green connector from the Oz chain. Make sure that's nice and flat, and then all that remains is to add in your earring finding. Because I have 3, I might just make this last one into a pendant. I'll take a photo in a moment and pop them down side by side on the board.